It's fear. We have been conditioned to see the rest of the world as hostile, murderous, ignorant. There's that sense of superiority that goes into it as well. And that was the survival tactic that was, it might already be in the DNA of so many generations. We're talking about thousands of years of marginalization and persecution. So this gets Jews really scared. I know because that's how I felt when I first started to hear about the Nakba and about the Palestinian struggle. As a good liberal, I was open to it, but then when I saw that they were talking, they showed me a map of Israel, and it's full of 500 villages that were destroyed that people want to go back to, and I did it to them, my first reaction was not outrage, but fear. What does this mean for me? How about us? Don't people understand how bad it's been for us? Now, the anti-Semitism charge applied to me, but I know that there are people who are working here on this who may not be anti-Semitic, but don't they know that they are helping the anti-Semites destroy Israel because they hate Jews? Don't they understand that, yes, maybe the Palestinians, and they minimize it all the time because they haven't seen it, they don't know the extent, but maybe the Palestinians have had to suffer for what we had to do for the Jewish people, or we had to do for ourselves. But really, deep down, I know they've suffered, but the resistance and this whole movement is really anti-Semitism and it's hatred of Jews. I know it, and don't try to tell me that it's not true, because I know, and what right do you have to tell me that? What I had to confront personally, and what I feel is the challenge for Jews, and for the Jewish people, and for Israel itself, is that this will kill us. This is not a way to build your identity. You don't build your identity on a sense of victimization, fear, and basically paranoia that everybody is against you. Well, another argument against BDS is, don't you understand that, one is it's going to be divisive, but the other is, don't you understand that the Jews in Israel are already terrified, and already believe the world is against them? This is just going to prove it to them. And I say, yep, I know that's true. And that's part of the tragedy of Israel, because Israeli kids born in Israel, from the cradle, and certainly from kindergarten, I'm not kidding, from kindergarten, are taught that their history is that there's always been an enemy from Pharaoh all the way up. Then there was Hitler, and now there's the Arabs, as we call them. And they want to kill us, just like everybody has always wanted to kill us, and that's why we have Israel. And this is drummed into them, and it's an indoctrination. And that's in a pure form. Jews in the so-called diaspora, like me, get that as well. It's not as strong, but it's basically the same thing. So this is not healthy. You can't build a society, and you can't build an identity based on this. And it's finally coming home to roost because of what Israel has become, which I think was inevitable. I think that Israel inevitably would have had to become a racist apartheid state because it's based on a racist ideology, but it's also based on a very, very toxic, pathogenic psychology. So I mentioned in my talk just now that Israel is, in fact, Pepe talks about this, one of the greatest, you need to get his book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. It gives the history and it's brilliant, but the last 4 chapters are sort of analytic chapters, and one of them is called Fortress Israel. Israel is a fortress. That wall creates a fortress, and the people inside the fortress are the prisoners. My specialty as a psychologist is post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? Now, we know that the real injury, the thing that really causes people to get sick from PTSD, is not just a sense of fear and vulnerability, but in some cases, a serious injury to, in some cases, destruction of the ability to trust. So you end up with a psychological disorder that means you cannot attach to other people, you can't love anymore, you can't trust other people. And that's what has to be dealt with in treatment if you're going to recover from PTSD, whatever the cause of the PTSD was. Treatment of choice is to get together with other people who have experienced that, learn slowly to work out what happened to you, and to work your way back into feeling like you can be part of humanity again, even though this terrible thing was done to you by other human beings. Okay? Now, the Jews, we are many things, and many wonderful things, but we are also an example of collective post-traumatic stress disorder. Then, we establish this fortress state. Okay? I know what the treatment of choice is. What you don't do to a group of people who have been traumatized is to put them in a house, build a wall around the house, put soldiers around the wall, and say, we'll protect you, stay in here, trust no one, they'll want to kill you. You're going to get sicker. So, the whole anti-Semitism thing is a problem, and the tragedy is that the State of Israel, as its official diplomatic mission and strategy, is to convince everybody that Judaism and Zionism are the same thing, and that and to be Jewish is to be Zionist, and any attack on the State of Israel comes from anti-Semitism. There is an industry of interfaith dialogue that rose out of kind of a whole movement in mainline in liberal Protestantism after World War II, out of a revulsion and shock and horror over the death camps, that said, oh my God, this my first book is all about this. Oh my God, look what we've done. And they were right, they did do that. I mean, that was Western Christianity that laid the groundwork and made it possible for Hitler to do what he did. And so they said, well, we were wrong about the Jews. We shouldn't have thrown them under the bus. God really loves them best. Yes, there's a new covenant, but it doesn't mean that the old covenant was wrong, and so we have two parallel covenants, and all kinds of theological gymnastics to try to get rid of the anti-Semitism and the anti-Jewishness that had poisoned Christian doctrine, which is a good thing. That was a slippery slope to Zionism, however, because what basically happened was that was the guilt offering that made it all okay. That's a short story. But out of that grew this business of Christians penitentially saying, will you please talk to us now? We're really sorry for what we did. And the Jewish institutions have capitalized on that. So interfaith dialogue really meant Christians coming to the Jews saying, please forgive us, and the Jews saying, well, I don't know if we'll forgive you, but we'll at least talk to you. But hands off Israel. This is our thing.
So that's what.
And that's taken the place of any kind of meaningful dialogue between Christians and Jews about this particular issue of Zionism. And that's still the rule, and that's still the case. So I'm kind of militant almost about helping good, kind-hearted, liberal Christians from getting sucked into that. One good line from my talk that I didn't get a chance to deliver was, I know that if you take on this cause, you are going to be called the worst name you could be called, anti-Semite. But that's your cross to bear, and it's not really that heavy, is it? That's what I mean beyond interfaith dialogue.
So in talking about Israel today, what are the main things we should be talking about Israel today? I mean, is there any opposition that makes any...
Well, the real point is, maybe the title was a little bit misleading, talking about Israel today with Jews. How do you do it?
Oh.
And how do you think about where Jews are at about it? Because it's a major barrier to many Christians. One of the assumptions that many Christians make is, because Israel is a Jewish state, and because it's supposed to be taking care of the Jews and it's our project, we can't take it on unless we have the accompaniment or the permission of Jews or the Jewish establishment to do that. And many Christians make that assumption. especially the ones who are, especially clergy and people who are in positions where those relationships are very important. Yes?
So there's the Israel's position that it is a tiny nation surrounded by hostile Arab countries who not only are anti-Semitic but would like to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. So there's that, and I would like your comments on how real is that. And then I'd also like to know something more about what the United States is really doing in the Middle East, and what are the, what are the geopolitical aspects of what's going on in terms of what the United States is up to.
Okay. Well, and that's really not the topic of this workshop. But to the first part, I think part of the mythology, and how they would call it mythology, that is used to keep Israelis scared and the strong right-wing guys in power and all of that, is that Israel is surrounded by hostile Arab nations.
Are you saying it's not real? It's
not real. No, the Arab countries, first of all, are not that excited about Palestinians. It gets complicated, but it's not necessarily in the interest of the Arab states that's surrounding Israel for Israel to go away. They're probably just as happy as Israel is with the instability in the region and the instability that's created by Palestinian resistance. In some ways, they would like Israel perhaps to be less powerful and less armed, but they're not necessarily unhappy about the fact that the United States is installed the way it is. The Cold War is over. A lot of that is left over from the Cold War in terms of the United States and the Arab states being at odds with each other, with the Arab states allied with the Soviet Union. So the other thing is that Israel, the idea that Israel could be threatened is kind of crazy. Israel is either the third or the fourth most powerfully armed nation in the world. It's got a nuclear arsenal of somewhere over 200 warheads. It's a fortress armed to the teeth. Nobody's going to attack Israel. Iran, even if they got the bomb, it's not going to attack Israel. But Israel needs the world, and certainly its own citizens, to believe that they're about to be annihilated. And make no mistake, Israelis feel that, and they believe that. They're terrified. Which is why it's such a powerful argument to say, please don't boycott them because it's going to make them more scared. To which my answer is, yeah, it is. It's too bad that they've been trained that way. But there are voices within Israel who are saying, please boycott us. Mm-hmm. Please help save our country because I do not want to raise my kids here. And the people with options are getting out. Yes?
Is this appropriate? In our community in San Francisco, we're trying to find, we have a lot of things cooperatively going in social service, like with the synagogues and Christian churches. And my particular parish is involved as one of those, and maybe one of the leaders in that. We serve the homeless and cooperate on that, and on the emergency food bank, and on earthquake preparedness, education, various things relating to the city. In our congregation then, it's very hard to bring up this issue because it will be divisive. I've gone to a couple of dialogues, Christian, Jewish dialogues about peace in the Middle East. The first one, as we experienced it, was clearly designed to dissuade people, any Christians who were thinking about it, to not embrace BDS. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't even mention the words Palestine. When I raised the question of why did BDS arise? Were Palestinian voices in this dialogue? No one was there. No one had been invited. And they just ignored it and said, well, it's a threat, you know, the head rabbi said it's a threat to the existence of Israel, and we have the biblical claim to the land. All right, this also, we've had this question, if we, I mean, personally, I came away from those two conferences I went to absolutely furious because the Jewish participants, especially the leaders, who wouldn't even acknowledge Palestine as an entity.
Were these sponsored by your church, or?
No,
They
by
were sort
a
of
different church.
A different church.
And the leaders of both sessions, the ones who organized them, it was the Jewish Human Relations Council.
You know, JCRC. Yeah.
JCRC. And they also, as you probably know,
Yeah,
have all
and
kinds of demonstrations.
that's what they do, and they're getting more and more organized and more well-funded, because it's basically a big anti-BDS movement. It's being funded with millions of dollars from Israel, and that's what you experience.
And so the leader of that in San Francisco is also a member of this Interfaith Council, and
Oh,
and,
yes, San
and a
Francisco.
good
This
friend,
is-
you know, a good friend of the pastors,
It's all coming to me now, yeah.
and a good friend of the
Right, so
pastors.
you have a very,
so-
very active JCRC and Jewish Federation in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So you should be really angry, and you should get really mobilized, and you should hook up with other churches in San Francisco ecumenically.
And do you think we could confront this Jewish voice?
No, don't
No.
confront the Jewish voice.
Okay.
No, no,
Good.
don't confront the Jewish, don't fight them. Just go off and do your own thing
Okay.
and offer alternatives. Because the problem is they feel like, oh, now we have, all the good Christians come to a dialogue about Israel and Palestine. It's done, now they've gotten the message. So you somehow have to get the message to all those people who now think they've had it, that they haven't, that what they've had is propaganda, and that they need the real story. You need to find a way. I mean, it's a longer conversation about how to do that, but if you can't do that in San Francisco, where can you do it? And especially in San Francisco, because you've had the full treatment. Yes. Yes, sir, and then you.
You mentioned in your talk about there's a coming restoration in Judaism. Reformation. Could you expand on that?
I just think that we are at a real crisis about who we are, and that we've allowed ourselves to go down the wrong path.